They said the truth would come out. But years later, the most powerful names connected to Jeffrey Epstein remain locked behind redactions, sealed court orders, and bureaucratic silence. And when one congressman finally demanded answers in front of the cameras, what followed wasn't just a hearing, it was a live-fire clash over who really controls access to the truth. It began with a simple question that silenced the room: why are Epstein's witness statements still sealed? That question came from Representative Dan Goldman, a former prosecutor known for his precision and calm intensity. Across from him sat FBI Director Kash Patel, the man now accused of withholding files the public was promised years ago. What happened next exposed a level of institutional evasion that felt less like law enforcement and more like protection.
Recognize Mr. Goldman.
Mr. Patel, does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
It's not a complicated question. Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I didn't say it was a complicated question. I just didn't hear you, so my apologies. We have released where President Trump's name's in the Epstein files and everybody else, and all credible information that we are legally allowed to release has been released.
All right, so let's go through that. You're referring to court orders that prohibit you from releasing grand jury testimony under Rule 6E. Is that what you're referring to when you say as the law allows?
That's a piece of it.
Really? What other evidence do those three court orders you cited prohibit from being released?
Information that was collected pursuant to those search warrants that were limited in fashion.
Wrong. That's not what the court order says, and that's not under 6E.
And you're talking, and I said that's 6E, and I said there was others, and I'm answering that. There are sealed court order documents. There are protective orders.
They are unsealed as part of discovery given to Ghislaine Maxwell. They are no longer sealed.
That's just not true. We can argue about it all you want.
Okay, well, you agree that there are, so your testimony here is that the reason why you are not releasing all of the videos that you have acknowledged, there are so many, and that the FBI spent thousands of hours of reviewing, the photographs, the photographs that you have. You're saying that you're not releasing those because there's a court order requiring them to be sealed? Is that your testimony?
Never said that about the videos. On the totality of the videos, of the thousands of images that were seized pursuant to the search warrants executed at the time, the overwhelming majority of that video is pornographic material that was downloaded from the internet and child sexual abuse material. We will never release that.
Well, as you should not release the victims. But if there are videos that relate to others who Epstein trafficked to, such as maybe Prince Andrew, or photographs, that you have total control to release.
Yes, and if it exists...
And so why haven't you released it?
Why are you supposing that that is a fact when in fact it is false? Are you saying that...
You're saying that none of the videos relate to anything relevant to the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking ring?
Every single video that we have collected pursuant to the prior search warrants has been examined for the last 10 years. And every single video has been utilized for whatever prosecutions were able to be legally brought.
I'm not asking about prosecutions. I'm asking about why you aren't releasing the full Epstein files, including the names of people who were involved in the sex ring that you promised to do before you became FBI director.
I just told you I'm not going to release downloaded porn of
I'm
children
not asking
on the
about
internet.
that. Fine. I'm asking about all the other files.
What other videos? Tell me. Tell me.
That's what I'm asking.
Tell me.
You're saying there are no videos that would be relevant to anyone else involved in the Jeffrey Epstein sex ring.
Pursuant to Mr. Acosta's collection of information based on the search warrants. That's all we have in our possession.
And I'm asking you, that stuff.
That's all we got.
I'm not asking all you got. I'm asking you, in that stuff, there's nothing that's related to any other sex traffic, any other people engaged with Epstein in underage sex.
That's correct. To my knowledge, no.
Okay. Let's talk about the witness interviews. 302s of witness interviews. Those are not subject to the court order. Those are not subject to any fictional sealed order for a search warrant. Why aren't you releasing those with the redacted names of the victims?
We are releasing as much as legally allowed. That's why we went back to the
how is
courts.
How is that not legally allowed?
Sir, do you know how court orders work? Do you know how protective orders work?
Actually,
Do you know how
Mr.
sealing
Patel,
orders
I was
work?
a real prosecutor for 10 years. I know exactly how
so I was a
court
fake one?
orders. And I want to understand what the court order prevents you from releasing witness statements that the FBI took.
You should know that as a real prosecutor, when the court hand downs a protective order and a motion to seal, the material is sealed unless
So
that
your
judge
testimony
waives
here
it.
is that all of those witness statements are under a court order, a protective order.
We are providing everything we can legally provide.
No, that's not my
Congress has
question.
sent us a
My
subpoena.
question is, why are those witness statements that are not grand jury testimony, that if they were under a protective order are no longer under a protective order, why are they not being released?
How are they not under a protective
Why
order?
are you not going to the court like you did for the grand jury testimony to unseal those
The
records?
DOJ did go to the court.
No, not on those records. Why aren't you going?
gentleman.
You just went on grand jury.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The
You are hiding the Epstein files,
time
Mr.
of the
Patel.
gentleman has expired.
You are part of the cover-up.
Can I respond?
You sure can.
Any allegations that I'm a part of a cover-up to protect child sexual trafficking and victims of human trafficking and sexual crimes is patently and categorically false in the work of my
So I hope you will talk to them when they
Gentlemen's time
have
has
requested
expired.
to speak with you. Because the
Gentlemen's time has
victims have
expired. Gentleman
requested
yields
and you are
back.
not responding to them.
Goldman's tone wasn't angry, it was surgical. He didn't shout. He built a trap, one careful question at a time. Patel insisted the FBI had released everything legally allowed. But to Goldman that phrase sounded like a smokescreen. Legally allowed by whom? He knew the difference between a court-sealed document and an agency simply choosing not to act. He wanted to know why the DOJ had gone to court to unseal some records, yet ignored others. And when Patel couldn't give a straight answer, the tension in the room shifted from political to personal. For years, the Epstein files have been the shadow archive of America's elite. Thousands of photos, hours of footage, hundreds of pages of witness statements, all collected, all reviewed, and yet most still hidden from public view. These aren't classified intelligence materials. They're evidence in one of the most disturbing trafficking cases in modern history. Evidence that in theory should belong to the people. Patel's defense was technical. He said court orders and protective filings prevented full disclosure. But Goldman knew better. Many of those orders had already expired. The materials once under seal during the Maxwell trial were no longer bound. That's why his questioning cut so deep. If the legal barriers were gone, what was the FBI waiting for? When Goldman pressed harder, Patel's composure cracked. He repeated himself. He stumbled. He turned to vague phrases: ongoing review, legal limitations, protection of victims. But Goldman wasn't asking for names of victims. He was asking for the rest, for the men and women in those documents who weren't victims. Those who allegedly participated, financed or facilitated Epstein's crimes. This is where the confrontation crossed a line no one expected on live television. Goldman reminded Patel that he'd been a real prosecutor for 10 years. That wasn't arrogance, it was a warning. A signal that he knew exactly when the law was being misused as a shield. He accused Patel of hiding behind procedure to avoid accountability. The director fired back, calling the accusations categorically false, but it was too late. The exchange had exposed something deeper, a culture of secrecy built into the very institutions meant to enforce justice. Goldman then shifted his focus to the evidence itself. "You've acknowledged thousands of hours of footage and photographs," he said. "Why haven't those been released?" Patel replied that most of the videos contained explicit material and could never be made public. Goldman agreed that the victim's privacy must be protected, but that wasn't the issue. The real question was about the rest, the footage and testimony that allegedly implicated others. Why had none of that seen the light of day? Patel insisted there was nothing relevant left to reveal. Every video, he said, had already been reviewed and used in prosecutions. Every lead had been exhausted. But Goldman pushed again. If that were true, why not prove it? Why not release the non-sensitive portions, the names that could finally end years of speculation? That's when the exchange turned explosive. Goldman accused the FBI of participating in a cover-up. Patel fired back, his voice rising, calling the claim false and offensive. The chairman tried to cut them off, but Goldman kept going. "The victims have asked to meet with you," he said, "and you haven't responded. The silence that followed said everything, because behind the political theater was a moral confrontation, the demand for justice versus the instinct to protect power. Goldman wasn't chasing headlines, he was giving voice to a public that's been gaslit for years. The phrase legally allowed may sound responsible, but it's often how institutions sanitize complicity. Think about it, we've seen document after document stamped sealed, testimonies buried, evidence labeled restricted, all under the pretense of procedure. Yet those same procedures somehow never stop when the targets are ordinary citizens. Only when the trail leads to boardrooms, royal circles, or political donors does legality become sacred. What Goldman exposed was the quiet weaponization of legality. When rules designed to protect victims are twisted to protect the powerful, justice becomes theater. It's how accountability dies without anyone saying the words. And here's where the story widens. Those sealed Epstein files aren't just a symbol of one case, they're a mirror of a much larger system. A system that shields wealth, status and influence from scrutiny. The same system that told us it's all been handled, while survivors still wait for acknowledgement. For more than a decade, people have asked the same questions: who enabled Epstein? Who profited? Who turned a blind eye? The answers exist in evidence rooms, in interview transcripts, in hard drives labeled sensitive. But every time someone gets close to exposing them, the same phrases appear: ongoing investigation, cannot comment, legally restricted, and the public again is told to move on. Goldman refused to move on. He wasn't just challenging Patel's credibility, he was challenging the entire culture of selective transparency. His cross-examination was a message to every agency hiding behind paperwork: secrecy isn't safety, it's rot. And when that rot sets in deep enough, justice stops being about right and wrong, it becomes about control. The hearing ended with no clear answers, but it left something behind, a crack in the wall of silence. Because millions watching saw what happens when someone dares to ask the questions that make powerful people squirm. Why are some files still locked away? Why are victims still waiting for answers? Why does legality seem to serve only those with connections? Those aren't conspiracy questions, they're civic ones. They're questions every functioning democracy should be able to answer without hesitation. As the hearing adjourned, Patel gave his final defense. He said any claim that he was part of a cover-up was patently false. Maybe. But the problem isn't just about individuals, it's about a system that has made secrecy the default language of power. For survivors, this is more than politics. It's about being heard after decades of being silenced. When an agency says it can't release their statements, it's not protecting them, it's erasing them. And that's why this moment resonated beyond Capitol Hill. It wasn't just about Epstein. It was about whether the justice system still belongs to the people, or only to those who can afford to benefit.
Yet,
Goldman's questioning reminded the country of something simple: transparency is not optional, it's the foundation of trust. And when that foundation cracks, everything built on it, the courts, the agencies, the rule of law, starts to crumble. So what now? The files remain locked, the witnesses remain unheard, and yet moments like this hearing matter. Because each public confrontation forces the conversation back into the light, it keeps pressure on the institutions that would rather bury the past than face it. It's easy to dismiss hearings like this as political theater, but look closer, this one revealed the uncomfortable truth about how justice is managed in America. When exposure threatens power, process becomes the weapon. When accountability gets too close, legal limitations appear. And when victims demand answers, they're told to wait for a system that's already failed them. The hearing might have ended, but the story didn't. There are still files unsealed. There are still interviews unreleased. There are still names that the public has a right to know. The question is who will push next. And that's why voices like Goldman's matter, because they refuse to accept the quiet burial of truth. They force institutions to remember that justice is not about who you are, it's about what you've done. And if that principle falls, the entire promise of equality under the law falls with it. As the cameras shut off that day, one line from Goldman lingered in the air: "The victims have requested to speak with you." That line wasn't political, it was human. It cut through years of excuses, filings, and silence. And it reminded everyone watching that behind the sealed documents and legal jargon are real people, people who deserve more than another bureaucratic shrug. If this story proves anything, it's that truth doesn't die in darkness, it suffocates in delay. Every postponed disclosure, every ongoing review, every redacted page is oxygen for impunity. And until someone tears that culture down, there will always be another Epstein, another file, another promise of transparency that never comes. So when you hear phrases like legally allowed, remember what they really mean, not can't, won't. This isn't about politics. It's about power, and the people willing to challenge it. It's about the difference between institutions that serve justice and institutions that serve themselves, because justice hidden is justice denied. And the only reason this fight still matters is because a handful of people in government and millions more watching still believe that the truth belongs to the public, not the privileged. That belief is what keeps the pressure alive. It's what ensures the cameras stay on, the hearings continue, and the questions keep coming. So don't let this fade like every other headline. The files are still sealed, the victims are still waiting, the truth is still buried under layers of procedure. And if you think that should change, if you believe the public deserves to see what's been hidden for so long, then make your voice part of the pressure, because the one thing institutions fear more than exposure is persistence. Like this video, share it with someone who still believes in accountability, and subscribe to the channel for more investigations that refuse to look away, because the fight for transparency isn't over, it's just beginning.